So it's time, isn't it? It's time. Let's talk about goalkeepers. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sink, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And I'm going to do it. I've been putting it off for a while, but with the distinct lack of noise surrounding goalkeepers in the transfer window at the moment, especially in a time where there is a lot of transfer news in general, it's starting to feel like Maresca is settling on Robert Sánchez as our goalkeeper from the next season. And I didn't ever want to say that out loud as not to accidentally manifest it, right? Just in case he's listening. But it bears talking about, and there are reasons to be positive, right? There are reasons to be positive. So before we get stuck into it, if you are enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking or sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. So Sanchez, let's just get it out there, had a good Club World Cup, right? He looked more assured, he made a lot of really clutch saves, and he was definitely an important part of what got us through the final and arguably kept us in the game several times over the tournament. But he clearly did not have the faith of the manager prior to that, right? Because in that 10-day window leading up to the Club World Cup, the almost entire thing from a Chelsea perspective was dominated by talks around Mike Maignan, 29-year-old French goalkeeper currently plying his trade at AC Milan. He only had 1 year left on his deal. We offered 8 to 10 million. They wanted 30 or I can't even remember. It was ridiculous, but we didn't end up going for it, much to the lamentation of many Chelsea fans, including myself. So we went with Rob Sanchez in the Club World Cup, and he did ultimately perform admirably, right? He did a really, really good job. But what does that mean for next season? So we've brought in João Pedro, and we're seeing stuff like Xavi Simons, João Hato. There's still a lot of noise going on around the transfer window at the moment, but none of it has been about goalkeepers. So that is starting to say, isn't it? Maresca is probably going to give Sanchez another season. So instead of just curling up in a ball in a dark room and crying about it, I've decided to have a little look into what Maresca's thought process might be, the kind of goalkeeper we've got with Sanchez, the kind that we want him to be, and if we were going to compare him to the ideal goalkeeper for Maresca's system, who would that be? So I've done research, I've created graphics, and you know me, I love making a graphic. And the goalkeeper I've landed on essentially is Ederson, and that's not really a surprise to anyone, right? Maresca is one of the disciples of Pep Guardiola, and although not entirely the same, we do seem to be trying to emulate a lot of the way that Man City played when they were successful. And Ederson was always a massive part of Man City's success, and he definitely played a really specific role compared to most goalkeepers in the Prem. It's all about, can he play with his feet? Can he play with his feet, right? And largely that, is starting to actually come over. Is he just a good shot stopper, which is old school now? Do you know what I mean? In this video today, I'm going to compare the last season we had with Robert Sánchez, his stats and how he did, because ultimately that's the best season we've had with him. But I'm not going to use Ederson's stats from last season. I'm actually going to use his stats from the 2021 season when he won the Golden Glove, and use that as a barometer, right? It's not just about comparing these two players. It's more about saying, where is Sanchez compared to the kind of goalkeeper that Maresca probably wants him to be? So let's go. Let's get into it. Let's see if we can alleviate some of these fears surrounding Sanchez being our number one for the next season. So just to reiterate, as I said, I am using Sanchez's 24-25 season stats and Ederson's 2021 season stats. And it's not really as much about comparing the players as if we'd want Ederson more. It's just, where does Robert Sánchez fall in that category in terms of the stats that Maresca is looking for in his goalkeeper? So how does Robert Sánchez stack up to a title-winning Ederson when they are being asked to play a similar role? So as always, we start with appearances, and Sanchez made 28 appearances last season to Ederson's 36 in the 2021 season. Now, what we know about that as Chelsea fans is obviously Sanchez was, he just lacks confidence sometimes, do you know what I mean? And he made a few very costly errors over a period of time that ultimately caused Maresca to drop him. So already we're off to a pretty bad start for Sanchez. Confidence is huge when you're a goalkeeper, right? One of my favourite nods to this is an interview I read about Gianluigi Buffon, and he said, to be a goalkeeper, you have to be an egotistical maniac. You have to believe that a goal is never going to get past you. Obviously it is. It's not about realistically saying that you're never going to concede a goal, but as far as belief in your skill and ability goes, you have to always believe that you'll never concede. Otherwise, your confidence will fall and you'll open yourself up to errors. Confidence seems to be one of the biggest issues that Sanchez has, and when he has made mistakes, which we will get onto a little bit later, it has often been costly. And last season, the 28 appearances show you that he was eventually dropped in favour of Philip Jorgensen, who didn't really do much better, although maybe made a few less costly errors. He wasn't as good as Sanchez was when Sanchez is good. But just from the appearances from the off, we can see that confidence is an issue for Sanchez, and that's something he's going to need to improve on. But again, juxtaposed against the recent Club World Cup performance, it does look like something that he's starting to improve on. Okay, so the next one is a fairly big one, right? Now, Sanchez managed 10 clean sheets last season, which in a 38-game season isn't really that good, is it? So Ederson managed 19, and that got him the Golden Glove that season. So it's not always to say that you're going to get the Golden Glove if you're in the title-winning team, don't get me wrong, but that's nearly double, man. Do you know what I mean? That's nearly double. So the next one is an interesting one, and this is where you start to see that Sanchez is actually reasonably good in some aspects, and for this type of football that we're looking to play, shot stopping isn't everything. So Sanchez managed 76.4% save percentage in the entire Premier League last season, and in Ederson's title-winning run in the 2021 season, he managed 77.4%. So there is not a huge amount of difference there at all, literally 1% different between their save percentages, which shows you essentially when they're facing shots, for the most part, Ederson just edges him out, but Sanchez is up there with a quality keeper. So although he doesn't win this bout against Ederson, just to view the two stats together, it does show you that in that regard, in the type of role he's being asked to play, that is something that Sanchez already has under his belt. Okay, so the next one is a stat that I'd never actually read before. I'm not going to lie to you, I've never really delved into goalkeeping stats this thoroughly before, but as it turns out, what we're just about to talk about is essentially the goalkeeping equivalent to XG. So if you're not into that sort of stuff, that's fine, but again, it is another interesting metric, and as you can see from the numbers, there isn't a huge amount of difference between these two guys in these situations. So goals prevented is actually a stat called PSXG, which stands for post-shot expected goals. So this stat measures the quality of shots after they've been taken. So it's like a retrospective quality analysis on how likely a shot was to go in after it had been taken. It factors in things like placement, power, trajectory, and obviously whether they're on target or not. So just for example, if a keeper faces 30 PSXG shots and 28 were conceded, then that means their stat will be +2, which means they saved 2 more shots than they were expected to. So what we're essentially saying with this, if you're a goalkeeper facing an XG and you save it, this stat goes up. So it's a shot stopping one, right? It's not to do with the passing or the outfield stuff or, playing with your feet or anything like that. This is another shot stopping stat. And in this regard, you can actually see that again, Sanchez did better than Ederson did in that season. Now that tells us 2 things. The first being Sanchez already has the shot stopping qualities to be in a title winning team if he can pull the rest of the stuff together. And the other thing that it tells you is that the way that these managers are looking at these goalkeepers with these stats being so similar, shot stopping is just not really the main thing that they're looking for. But moving on is where things start to get a little bit more modern, right? So we hear it all the time, don't we? They want the keeper to play with his feet. They want the keeper to play with his feet. We're looking for a goalkeeper who can play with his feet. And this is ultimately where the difference between the two goalkeepers starts to be a little bit more stark. So Robert Sánchez does not have terrible pass accuracy at all at 82.1%. But for Ederson's 88% in a title winning charge, that just shows you that's the kind of numbers that you need. And 6% doesn't seem like a lot, but it really is in the grand scheme of things. That's like hundreds, if not thousands of passes over the course of a season that are made and what the percentage of that is. So although 6% doesn't seem like a big difference over the entire season, it really is. And obviously in the title winning season, Ederson edges that one out. So that's something that isn't terrible about Sanchez, but ultimately needs improving if we're going to start challenging for honours. Now the next one's an interesting one as well, the long passing accuracy stat, right? So one of the things, and we've seen it in action very recently, there was a goal in the Club World Cup, I think it was either against Palmeiras or Fluminense, I can't remember, but essentially Sanchez launches a long ball over to the right, Pedro picks it up and gets it to Cole Palmer and he scores. So we're not a long ball team, but long balls with purpose, right? Long balls with purpose, and the accuracy is really important in that respect. So again, in the grand scheme of things, over an entire season and how many of these are taken, the difference between the two keepers goalkeepers is quite large. Sanchez managed 53.1% long pass accuracy over the course of the season. So that essentially means 1 in 2 times Sanchez is going to reach his target. And that's just not really enough, is it? Compared to Ederson's 61.2%, where he's basically getting 2 in 3, which is a significant increase. And this is the sort of stuff that these managers, your Marescas, your Peps, they want your goalkeepers to do. They want you to not just be a goalkeeper and shot stop and stay rooted to the, to your box and whatever. They want you to get involved in the play. And part of what that means is trying to actually start attacks from the back. And that doesn't just mean passing it out to your centre backs. That means literally trying to look for people in space and launch the ball and try and find opportunities. He's not terrible at it, although we have seen a couple of serious blunders when it comes to his long balls. In a title winning season, that 1 in 2 needs to be 2 in 3. Now, the next stat isn't necessarily one that I think is super important, but it is interesting, right? So it's assists, and you do not expect in general your goalkeeper to be getting assists. So Robert Sánchez has 0 assists. That does not mean that he's terrible at getting assists, because the majority of the goalkeepers in the entire Premier League for all of time had 0 assists, right? It is not a very common thing to see at all, and Ederson managed 1 in their title winning season. Look, what I will say is if Sanchez can improve his confidence and up his pass accuracy, improve his long balls, then maybe he can get an assist too. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility. Like I just described with the goal that he kind of had the key pass for that ended up being scored by Cole Palmer. If that goes directly to Cole Palmer and he drifts in and scores, then yeah, Sanchez gets an assist. So it's not to say, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Oh, your keeper needs 5 assists a season. No, absolutely not. Maybe 20 years in the future when we get bored of them just playing with their feet, then we can start talking about that. But for right now, assist is not a really important stat, but it does just bear noting that that was something that Ederson was able to do in that season and has done a few times before that as well. Right, so the next one is the big one, right? This next stat is the reason that the majority of us Chelsea fans are not sick of Robert Sanchez, got sick of Robert Sanchez. Obviously, he's just kind of won some love back, hasn't he, with his performance in the Club World Cup final and over the tournament in general. But errors leading to goals is the single most anxiety-driving factor of any Chelsea fan's relationship with Robert Sanchez. Errors from Robert Sanchez directly led to goals 5 times last season, right? 5 times, and that is outrageous. And the thing is, that's not an isolated stat. I don't actually have the stat from the season before, but I know it was quite high then as well. And unfortunately, this isn't something where it's just like, oh, it happens to everyone. It's like, nah, man, 5 in a season is a trend and it is a precedent. And it kind of says, right, this is what we need to watch out for. And also it will tell other teams, their managers will be like, press that goalkeeper, run at that goalkeeper. He can make mistakes. He lacks confidence and gets a bit sometimes, so we can take advantage of that. I was really surprised that didn't happen in the PSG game, but at the end of the day, he was amazing in the PSG game, so hopefully whatever he unlocked there he keeps. But in that entire 2021 season when Ederson won the league, he only ever made 1 error that led to a goal, and I guarantee to you he probably got reprimanded for that as well. So yeah, this is the big one, isn't it? The errors leading to goals. And the thing is, the errors that Sanchez make don't always lead to goals, but he makes so many errors that nearly lead to goals, and 5 of them actually did, that it's just so hard to watch him as a Chelsea fan anytime the ball gets near him. I am squarely talking about his Premier League performance, right? Like I say, if things change, but that's got to go. That's absolutely got to go. That 5 errors. And I don't know if that's something you can train out of someone, right? Because it is a confidence thing. So the thing with these goals as well is like there is a little bit of subtext and context around them. How many of those goals that Sanchez conceded actually cost us points? So as far as the Premier League goes, essentially twice. One of them was against Man City. And although we had conceded already, that was the goal that created the gap and killed the momentum in the game. So that goal against City in the Premier League didn't directly cost us points, but it is fair to assume that ultimately it cost us because the flow of the game changed after. And the other Premier League example was our 1-1 draw with Arsenal, and the goal we conceded was because of Sanchez, and I was particularly screwing about that one. So that one did actually cost us 2 points. And the other time outside of the Premier League that happened last season was in the Brighton game in the FA Cup. Sanchez was at fault for both of the goals in that game and got us launched out of a cup. And yes, okay, we won 2 trophies last season, so eventually that didn't hurt us. But if we're having a difficult season and it's looking like, one of the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup is something that we kind of really need to go for, you can't be costing us both of the goals to get us launched out of the tournament. So look, to an extent, every goalkeeper makes at some point an error that leads to a goal. But with Sanchez, it's been so consistent over the last few seasons. And this is the biggest thing that I personally worry about. He can be confident and be a great shot stopper and get better at all the other stuff and all the passing and the long passes and being an outfielder and all that sort of stuff. But if he does stuff like this and he does stuff that concedes us goals and costs us points, and that's the sort of stuff that can cost you a title, man. So yeah, talk to me about it in the comments, man. Do you think that Sanchez will improve that along with everything else if we end up with him being our keeper, or are you feeling at the moment the same way as I am, where that is something I'm just really worried about next season, that we could be excellent outfield, but Sanchez does something silly in the net and costs us a goal and essentially loses us games or costs us points that we really need in order to go for the highest honours. So the next one is another really interesting stat, and this is one that 100% feeds into how the likes of Maresca and Pep Guardiola want their goalkeepers to play. The stat is called sweeper actions per 90, and what this essentially means is how many times during a game does the goalkeeper do an action that is more of an outfielder thing, right? So it counts for things like intercepting through balls, clearing danger outside the box, or kind of acting like an auxiliary centre-back and, becoming an 11th man in the outfield. So in terms of how Sanchez fared, it's not terrible. So he made 1.7 sweeper actions per 90 last season, and in Ederson's title-winning season, he made 1.85. So there's not an enormous difference, over an entire season where Sanchez is making nearly 2 actions per game that essentially means he's being part of the build-up play. So that is something that he can improve just based on looking at Ederson's stat, but something that he is already trying to do. And maybe that's a bit of a confidence issue, right? Okay, so the next stat is something called launch percentage. And I don't necessarily think this makes one player better than the other. I think it's more of a stylistic thing. So what launch percentage means is of the goal kicks that are taken over a season, what percentage of them are long balls versus short balls, right? So for me, this kind of indicates more about how the manager likes you to play rather than what is this goalkeeper naturally doing, because they will have instruction and be told to do certain things. So Sanchez has got a launch percentage of 21.3%, and what that essentially means is when he's got the ball, 4 out of 5 times he's playing it short, 1 in 5 times he's playing it long. Now there was that kind of moment, the moment that he got dropped, wasn't it? The moment he got dropped for a little while was because he'd been told to play short, but he chose to go long, and that was one of the errors that led to a goal, and he was promptly dropped after that for a few games. So it definitely was something that came from the manager rather than him. But since then, we've definitely seen an uptick in long balls from Sanchez. So that number might have even been lower had that conversation not have happened. Ederson's launch percentage is literally double the amount of Sanchez at 43.8%, and essentially 4 in 10 goal kicks are being taken as long shots. So that means he likes to mix it up, and what that means is what I was talking about earlier with the long ball percentage thing, where Ederson is really, really often looking to start attacks, right? But again, I think that will have been more to do with instruction from the manager rather than something that they're just doing. So I don't really think you can use this stat to judge them, like, is one better than the other? I think it's just what they're being told to do by the manager. And the last one we've got here, I guess is a little bit arbitrary, but I suppose it's the details that can make the difference, right? The last stat we've got is average goal kick length, and it is in yards. So in the 24-25 season, Sanchez managed an average goal kick length of 27.9 yards, compared to Ederson in his 2021 title winning season when he managed 28.4. So I don't even really know how to interpret that one, to be honest. We're looking at half a yard of difference, essentially. So when Ederson takes a kick, he can kick it on average half a yard further than Robert Sanchez can. Does that half a yard make the difference? I don't really know. Tell me in the comments if you think it does, but this is an interesting one. It's nerdy, but I'd love to find out what you guys think about that one. And that's it, right? That is the statistical breakdown of Robert Sanchez's last season and his most successful season with us, and Ederson's Golden Glove winning run in the 2021 season, where he was just absolutely brilliant and doing all of the things that we are kind of looking for Robert Sanchez to be able to do. And it paints an interesting picture, doesn't it? It's like, after going through everything and research and everything, what it tells you is there's only really 1 or 2 things about Sanchez that he needs to improve in order to kind of get up there, and be a top goalkeeper. But are they things that can be trained out of him? Can his confidence be built to stop making these silly, costly errors? And can his decision-making improve? So, like I say, what I'm not doing is Ederson a better goalkeeper than Sanchez? Like, obviously he is. Do you know what I mean? I'm not here at all trying to argue that Sanchez is even close to Ederson in terms of quality. But what I am really just trying to do is look at, can Sanchez become the goalkeeper that Maresca wants? And like I say, I reckon if Maresca could have a prime Ederson in his team right now, he'd probably love that, wouldn't he? So has this allayed my fears about having Robert Sanchez in the posts for the next season? not allayed completely, maybe a little bit less, because I can see the progress and I can see how close he actually is to matching up with those title winning stats. And obviously we've just got the good vibes from the Club World Cup that have just finished as well, haven't we? So, but no, the negative side of that is that errors leading to goal stat is stark, man. That is a huge thing that he absolutely has to get sorted out, and it is almost entirely a confidence thing. So we'll have to see how it goes. I've got a feeling that we are really just not going to go in for a goalkeeper now. I think Penders has gone to Strasbourg on loan, and I think we're probably just going to keep Philip Jorgensen as the backup, and he can keep developing. And I think we will see Robert Sánchez in the sticks next season. What I will say absolutely is, if it wasn't this season, it's next season. If Sanchez performs in a similar manner throughout next season to how he has this season, despite the Club World Cup heroics, he'll be out. This is last chance saloon for Robert Sánchez, man, because a goalkeeper is easily one of the biggest differences you can make between being someone on the cusp and someone winning stuff. And we are used to some of the best goalkeepers of all time. So that's it, guys. I'm going to wrap it up there. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I would love to know what you think. The only other thing I haven't really talked about today is who else would we get, right? Because I know Donnarumma's kind of, arguing with PSG about his contract. Some news about City being in for him there. There was some news ages ago about Gregor Kobel. Nothing's happened with Trafford yet. Are you guys happy to see Robert Sánchez in the sticks for another year, considering his Club World Cup heroics, or is now the time to change? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope you guys have a wicked day, and I will catch up with you very soon. Peace.